Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is The Winter's Tale at Shakespeare in the Park. I went last night and I saw the first performance. Now, before I get into this, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and tell you about all the things that are going on in New York. Okay, I love Shakespeare in the Park, and this isn't going to be really a full review of the show for two reasons. I saw the very first preview. They had yet to run through the entire show. And in fact, they did not make it through the entire show last night because it was raining constantly. We stopped about 7 times during the show, and we made it, oh gosh, probably about 3/4 of the way through the second act. So we almost made it to the end, but the rain just got too heavy and they had to call it off. So this whole thing was a start and stop. The audience was, it was about half full to begin with because anyone who looked at the forecast knew that it was going to be a rainy night. And then the audience just was disappearing little by little, not because the show wasn't good, but just because of the rain. And it was just a stalwart theater lovers, Shakespeare lovers that were left there at the end when they finally had to call it. But I'm going to go ahead and give you my opinions on this show. Think of this more of as a preview other than a review. But I have a lot of positive things to say about this, so I just wanted to go ahead and tell you about it. So I had never seen Winter's Tale. It's one of the Shakespeare plays I'm really not familiar with. And so I was excited to see something new. I was a little trepidatious after the experience with Romeo and Juliet. I was worried, is some of this going to be in Spanish? Is it going to be set on the border wall? But I am happy to tell you that director Daniel Sullivan has chosen to set the play in the time that it was originally written to be set. And it is all in English. And it's got some incredible actors. And I knew that Raúl Esparza was in this. I knew that Rabe was in it. And then I was also pleased to see that Stephen Skybell was also in this, who I saw as Herr Schultz in Cabaret. I've been told I look like him, which is a compliment because he's a very handsome man. Oh, I didn't mention Chuck Cooper's in this too. That was another surprise. Chuck Cooper, who is only in the second act, he was great as Old Shepherd. I didn't get a name. I was just really loving all the casting in the show. It's a very multi-ethnic cast, but it never was confusing because of that. It just really worked. So let's talk about the actors. No, we're not going to talk about actors. We're going to talk about just the over thing that Daniel Sullivan's put together here. This is not going to go down as my favorite Shakespeare plays, but I really enjoy this because it was simple staging, a simple set design, nice costumes that were effective and gave us the time period. And the actors were all very good and they were given space to do what they needed to do. They weren't overblocked. They weren't climbing on border walls. They weren't wearing ridiculous, crazy, wild costumes. They're good actors and they were given space to do their work. I thought the sound, considering how much rain and wind was going on, the fact that the mics were doing as well as they did, I could really hear what they were saying. So the sound design was good. I should give credit. Brian Ronan, good job with the sound. There's musicians listed, but they weren't on stage. So I'm not sure if they weren't on stage because it was raining, but here they are. But there was music that sounded like it was live. So I don't know if they were like downstairs playing their cues or if they recorded them playing it live and they were piping it back. My guess is it was live music. Composition is Tom Kitt, so I guess he wrote the music. Did a great job. I really enjoyed it. All right, so the acting I thought was strong across the board. I mean, what I love is about when the acting is good and the direction is good. As an audience member, you become fluent in Shakespeare language. You feel like you can speak another language. You understand everything they're saying. And there were lots of scenes in this where the whole scene I understood every single word of what they said. And that's a testament to the sound design, the direction, and these fine actors. You know, what is The Winter's Tale about? For those of you who don't know, I didn't know. But look, they give us a synopsis in the play. And I always do this. I go in not knowing anything, but if you put something in the playbill, I will read it. And there's an article even called The Case of Trusting Shakespeare, which is what this production did. And I read this article and I read the synopsis. So I basically knew the story. At the heart of this, we have a king, Leontes, and he accuses his wife, Hermione, of cheating on him. That happens right at the top of the show. And I knew whether she had or had not because I'd read the synopses, but I was wondering watching it if I would ever question her. But I don't think I would, because the way it's written and the way that Lily Rabe plays Hermione, she seemed very truthful, and Leontes, played by Raúl Esparza, seemed crazy. So the hard thing about this play is it's not like King Lear or Titus Andronicus or any of the tragedies, or Othello. Othello's a great example, where we have someone that might be unlikable or crazy and we build up to that. This one, we start in the first scene, he's already crazy with jealousy and he accuses his wife right in that first scene, which is so unusual. And this play is weird because the first act is a tragedy and the second act is a comedy. So, of course, my first criticism, as I'm sure everyone's criticism, is there's a tone problem with this play, because you go from really tragic stuff to really lighthearted in the second act, and it's just, even with a 15-minute intermission, it's whiplash. So I don't need to get into too much what the play is about, because you guys can all look that up online because it's Shakespeare. But Leontes basically makes everyone's life hell in the first act. And then in the second act, we get a redemption. I didn't get to the redemption because of the rain. And what's hard about this is Leontes is our main character, at least for the first act. We're really focused on him, and he's unlikable because he's crazy and he's accusing his wife of these things, and he's being just a madman. And even, Raúl Esparza, who I love, still, you don't like this guy. I don't think anyone could play him likable, nor should they. And so at first I kind of was wishing that they had given me a scene where I could see his love for Hermione, so that then I was torn apart by the fact that he was treating her this way. But then I realized as it moved along that what was making the first act work for me is that he is clearly the antagonist. He is at the center of this play. We have a man who's crazy and is doing bad things. And then the question is, how will people react to this? Will they enable him, or will they stand up against him? And if they stand up against him, how firmly will they do so? And I think this is a very timely message. And what's so lovely about this is the people that really firmly stand up against him are the women. First of all, his wife, who is in a very difficult position, but she stands up and speaks her truth. And I absolutely loved the character of Paulina, played by Marsha Stephanie Blake. She was fantastic. She's a woman in the court. I'm not exactly sure what her relationship to Hermione is, but she's someone that has access to the king. And she just lays into the king in this way that you're like, yeah, girl, you tell him. She was fierce, and all of the scenes with her are great. She has a great scene with Emilia as well, who's played by Jennifer Mogbach. And I just can't, I loved every actor. They all well cast. I'll just tell you, Camilo I thought was great. Teagle F. Bourguer, might be saying that wrong. Perdita Isabel Ferrer, who plays the daughter of Hermione. Polixenes, played by Gilbert O'War. And Antigonus, who is the husband of Paulina, is played by Stephen Skybell, who also plays Autolycus. One of those characters only in the first act, and the other characters only in the second act. So he was the one person who got to play two very different roles, and I thought he did a great job. Other positives, I thought the costume design was really great. There's two countries. There's Sicilia and Bohemia. And Bohemia is very bohemian. It's all earth tones, flowing fabrics, very hippie bohemian. And then Sicilia, which is mainly in the court of the king, is richer jewel tones, more symmetrical, but everything's flowing and blowing in the wind and the rain, which was fun. All right, so a few of my little nitpicks. First of all, considering that this was the first performance and they have yet to run through the whole thing, the first act was really good. I thought it was really strong for a first performance. And the fact that they had to keep stopping and starting and they were able to get back into those scenes, sometimes they would stop them. I just felt so bad for the actors. Like, because the first act is a tragedy, it's so dramatic. People are dying and people are on the floor weeping and crying, and then they're like, hold for rain. I felt so bad, but they jumped right back into it. And in fact, over the course of the evening, at first the actors were really game. They were like, rain. By the 7th time they got stopped, and I completely understand. I could see on their face, their patience was wearing thin. They were like, are we ever going to make it through this play? And the answer is no, you're not. Maybe tonight you will make it through the play. Let's hope. Although it's supposed to rain a lot this week. So, speaking of Autolycus, played by Steven Skybell, he's a really comedic character in this second act. He's a clown. He's also a con man and a rogue. And he is playing it very broadly. For me, it went a little over the top a few times. You know, just when things unbelievable happen or get a little crass, like when he goes to urinate off the top of the stage and he's wearing pants that don't have a fly. So I'm like, first of all, I don't believe you're urinating. Yeah, whip it out, buddy. Don't pretend. But you can't because your pants don't have a fly. So, but he's doing great work. He also was ad-libbing, which I'm always like, oh, are we going to ad-lib in Shakespeare? Well, the director let him get away with it. So he was fun, a little bit over the top for me, but I also loved him. He was so good in Antigonus. He was great in that. Did not even realize it was the same person until I looked at the playbill later. And also the second act hasn't been rehearsed as much. So what happens though with this play, with the second act, not only is there that huge tone shift, but there's also an issue because there's a secret that's being hid in the second act. There's a character that people don't know who this character is. But we as an audience know who she is. And so what happens is second act begins and we already know how it's going to end because we know who this character is and no one else in the scene knows who she is. So we're way ahead of it. And so then when this rogue interferes and makes things difficult, it feels just like, okay, get through this. I just didn't feel invested in the play anymore because I kind of blown my wad. Is that the term that they say? I'd already had an emotional experience from the first act and I'd gone in this arc with Raúl Esparza's character. And yes, it's tragic, but I had all the emotions. So now we go into the second act and it's light and comedic. Again, that tone shift, but then I just don't have the patience anymore. Especially also this play took over 3 hours because it was like 3.5 hours when we finally left and it still wasn't over because we had to keep stopping. But I just don't have the patience. And then so when the character comes out and sings a song for us, you know, the songs in Shakespeare don't move the plot forward. They're just a little moment for people in the audience to enjoy a song. There's a dance. It's all lovely, peasants dancing. But I just don't have the patience for it. And I'm just like, let's get to it. We know where we're going with this story. So, but we never got to it. All right, so let me wrap this up. Thanks for sticking with me on this ramble. I really enjoyed seeing this. I didn't mind the rain. It's part of it. I was just so impressed that they were able to be really locked in their characters while they're being rained on. There's some funny moments too where there's some line where he's like, the beautiful sky, and we're like, no. And then there's another moment later in the play where there's a storm happening and we're like, great, now it's working perfectly and the wind's blowing. And so it's this amazing serendipity that happens when you're doing Shakespeare in the Park where some things really fit and other things might not. And what's so interesting about this story is it's so melodramatic, it's so over the top. The story has a lot of wild shifts into it. But what I find is I was able to let go of the ridiculousness of kind of the plot trappings because regardless of the plot, what we're really focusing in on is the relationship between 2 or 3 characters and in these scenes. And once we accept that this is what this person wants and this is what this person wants, and then they come in and they're in conflict with each other, I was just enjoying the truthful, beautiful acting with this great Shakespearean dialogue and poetry. There were scenes, so many scenes that I just, after each scene, I turned to my friend, I went, that was a great scene. Another one, that was a great scene. If you like good acting, I think there's just a lot to be enjoyed in this show. As far as the whole arc of the show goes, it's one of the problem plays, as they tell us in the playbill in this article about trusting Shakespeare. But Really enjoyed it. I went ahead and put this video out because I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it back or if it's going to rain again. I'm going to try to make it back so I can see the end of the play. All right, so yeah, go get your free ticket and then go enjoy The Winter's Tale at Shakespeare in the Park. I really enjoyed this, and I think it's what Shakespeare in the Park is all about. Thanks for watching, and when you go see The Winter's Tale, I hope you are not bored or confused. Bye.
Don't wanna drift away, wanna stay inside the play. Keep me engaged, keep me amused with what's in front of me, 'cause I don't wanna